The Cartier diamond necklace felt heavier than expected in Kestrel Hartwell's trembling palm, as she stood frozen in the marble bathroom of the Monaco Casino's VIP suite. The 18-carat masterpiece caught the light from the crystal chandelier above, casting rainbow prisms across her pale skin like accusations. She had exactly 30 seconds to return it to the jewelry display in the adjoining salon before anyone noticed it was missing. 29, 28, 27. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures, little bird. But this wasn't desperation. This was insanity. Kestrel had never stolen anything in her 22 years of life, not even a candy bar as a child. Yet here she stood, a server at the most exclusive charity gala in Europe, holding a necklace worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. 26. 25. She'd been working the Monte Carlo circuit for 3 months, moving from yacht to casino to private villa, serving champagne to people who threw around money like confetti, while her grandmother lay dying in a hospital bed 3,000 miles away. The experimental treatment that could save Eleanor Hartwell's life cost $200,000, money that might as well have been $2 million for all that Kestrel could hope to earn it legitimately. 24. 23. The bathroom. Door clicked open behind her. I was wondering when you'd make your move. Kestrel's heart stopped. In the mirror's reflection, she saw him. Dominic Blackthorne, the man whose presence had dominated every social gathering she'd worked for the past month. Tech billionaire, venture capitalist, and according to Forbes, the most eligible bachelor in the world. He stood in the doorway like a predator who'd finally cornered his prey, his storm gray eyes fixed on the necklace in her hand. Mr. Blackthorne. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. I can explain. Can you? He stepped into the bathroom and closed the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like a judge's gavel. Please, enlighten me. What innocent explanation could there possibly be for finding you here, alone, holding the Vivian Rothschild collection's centerpiece? The necklace suddenly felt like it was burning her palm. Kestrel wanted to drop it, to run, to disappear into the Mediterranean night and never look back. Instead, she found herself staring into those penetrating eyes, seeing not the charming smile he wore for the cameras, but something harder, hungrier. My grandmother is dying. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. The treatment she needs. I can't afford it. I wasn't going to keep it. I was going to return it. I swear. After what? Taking photos to create a convincing replica? Switching it out during the auction tomorrow? He moved closer, and she caught the scent of his cologne. Bergamot and cedar, expensive and intoxicating. You've been casing these events for months, haven't you? The perfect inside job. No one suspects the invisible server. No, it's not like that. The security footage will be quite damning. His voice was silk over steel. You entering the display room during your break, pocketing the necklace, coming here too. What was the plan exactly? Hide it until you could slip away? Kestrel's knees went weak. Security footage. Of course there would be cameras. She'd been so focused on the 30-second window when the guards rotated their positions that she'd forgotten about the digital eyes watching everything. Please, she whispered, hating the desperation in her voice. I'll put it back. No one has to know. Oh, but I know. Dominic reached past her to lock the bathroom door, his arm brushing against hers. The contact sent an unwelcome shiver through her body. The question is, what's that knowledge worth to you? Something in his tone made her look up sharply. There was no disgust in his expression, no moral outrage, just calculation, as if he were working out a particularly interesting business equation. I don't understand. I think you do. He leaned against the marble counter, studying her with the intensity of a scientist examining a fascinating specimen. You're in quite the predicament, Miss Hartwell. Yes, I know your name. I make it my business to know everything about everyone, in my orbit. The way he said her name sent another unwelcome thrill through her. What do you want? Direct, I appreciate that. His smile was sharp as a blade. I'm about to close the most important deal of my career, a merger that will reshape the entire tech landscape. But there's one small problem. My board of directors thinks I'm too volatile, too unpredictable. They want to see stability, maturity, commitment. I still don't understand what this has to do with me. They want to see me settled, in love, preferably with someone who isn't a gold-digging socialite or a fame-hungry actress. His eyes traveled over her face, cataloging every detail. Someone real, authentic, someone like you. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. You want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? For 30 days. Through the merger negotiations, the board presentations, the final signing. He pulled out his phone and showed her the screen, a paused security video of her entering the jewelry display room. In exchange, this footage disappears and you walk away with enough money to save your grandmother and start a new life. How much money? $300,000. The number hit her like a physical blow. $300,000. Enough for the treatment, enough for a future, enough to finally stop feeling like she was drowning every single day. And if I refuse? Then I call security. You're arrested for attempted grand theft and your grandmother dies while you're serving a very long prison sentence in a French jail. His tone was conversational, as if he were discussing the weather. Monaco doesn't look kindly on thieves who target their most prestigious events. Kestrel stared at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. This wasn't the charming philanthropist from the magazine covers or the smooth businessman from the financial news. This was a predator who'd identified her weakness and moved in for the kill. You're despicable. I'm practical. He straightened, his black tie with elegant fingers. I have something you need, freedom and money. You have something I need, credibility and authenticity. It's simply business. There's nothing simple about this. Isn't there? He moved closer again, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his gray eyes. 30 days of playing the part of a woman in love. 30 days of wearing designer gowns, eating at the finest restaurants, staying in luxury hotels. 30 days of pretending to care about a man you clearly despise. In exchange, your grandmother lives and you never have to see me again. The bathroom felt smaller suddenly, the air thicker. Kestrel could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, could feel the weight of the necklace in her hand like a chain binding her to this moment, this choice, this man. What makes you think I can convince anyone that I'm in love with you? Because you're going to have to. His smile was all teeth and no warmth. Your life depends on it. And I've found that people are remarkably good actors when their survival is at stake. She looked down at the necklace, then back up at his face. In 30 days, she could save her grandmother, pay for her own education, and maybe even figure out what she wanted to do with the rest of her life. All she had to do was spend a month pretending to love a man who held her freedom hostage. I want the money up front. Half now, half when the deal closes. He extended his hand. Do we have an agreement, Miss Hartwell? Kestrel stared at his outstretched hand, knowing that the moment she took it, her life would never be the same. This man was dangerous, not just because he could destroy her, but because something in his eyes made her wonder if the real danger lay in how easily she might lose herself in the game they were about to play. We have an agreement, Mr. Blackthorne. As their fingers touched, she felt the necklace slip from her other hand, hitting the marble floor with a crystalline chime that sounded like the closing of a door, or perhaps the opening of a cage. The private jet's leather seats were softer than anything Kestrel had ever touched, but she couldn't relax. 24 hours had passed since her life imploded in a Monaco bathroom, and she still felt like she was falling through space with no parachute. Through the oval window, the Swiss Alps stretched endlessly below, their snow-capped peaks catching the morning light like scattered diamonds. You look like you're about to jump out. Dominic's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. He sat across the narrow aisle, perfectly at ease in his charcoal suit, reviewing documents on his tablet as if he flew around Europe every day, which she supposed he probably did. The thought had crossed my mind, she admitted, then immediately regretted her honesty. Everything she said would be catalogued, analyzed, potentially used against her later. He looked up from his screen, those storm gray eyes studying her with that unsettling intensity. Having second thoughts about our arrangement? Would it matter if I was? Not particularly. His smile was razor sharp. We're flying to Zurich for your makeover. My stylist, Celeste Dubois, will be handling your transformation. By the time she's finished, you'll look like you belong in my world. The word transformation made her stomach clench. What's wrong with how I look? Nothing, if your goal is to blend into the background serving canapes. He set down his tablet and gave her his full attention. But you're about to become Dominic Blackthorne's girlfriend. That comes with certain expectations. Kestrel had caught glimpses of his previous companions in the tabloids, supermodels, actresses, European royalty. Women who looked like they'd been carved from marble by Renaissance masters. Women who made her feel like a sparrow among peacocks. I'm not going to have plastic surgery, she said firmly. I don't want you to have plastic surgery. His response surprised her. I need you to look real. Remember, authentic, but authentic in a way that photographs well and doesn't embarrass me at board dinners. The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing their descent into Zurich. Kestrel's hands clenched in her lap as the city grew larger through the window. Another unfamiliar place, another step deeper into a world that felt like quicksand. One question before we land, she said. Why me? Really? You could have found someone willing to do this without blackmail. Dominic was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Because you looked at me like you could see exactly who I was, and you weren't impressed. He turned back to his tablet. That's surprisingly rare in my world. 2 hours later, Kestrel stood in front of a three-way mirror in the most exclusive boutique in Zurich, barely recognizing herself. Celeste Dubois, a sharp-featured woman with silver hair and predatory efficiency, circled her like a shark, scenting blood. Magnifique, Celeste murmured in accented English. Monsieur Blackthorne was right. You have excellent bone structure, but you hide it like you're ashamed. We will fix this. The next 4 hours were a blur of luxury torture. Her hair was cut, colored, and styled until it fell in soft waves around her shoulders, bringing out the natural auburn highlights she'd never noticed. Her eyebrows were shaped with mathematical precision. A makeup artist taught her techniques that enhanced her features without making her look artificial. Then came the clothes. No black, Celeste commanded, pulling dresses from racks that probably cost more than Kestrel's yearly salary. Black is for widows and waitresses. You will wear colors that complement your skin tone: emerald green, deep sapphire, burgundy wine. Each outfit fit perfectly, tailored to measurements taken with scientific precision. Evening gowns that made her look like she belonged at premieres. Casual wear that was somehow more elegant than anything she'd ever owned. Shoes that added 3 inches to her height and made her legs look endless. Now, Celeste said, stepping back to admire her work, you look like a woman worthy of Monsieur Blackthorne's attention. Kestrel stared at her reflection, seeing a stranger wearing her face. The woman in the mirror was sophisticated, polished, beautiful in a way that belonged in glossy magazines. But underneath the expensive clothes and expert makeup, she still felt like the same desperate girl who'd tried to steal a necklace to save her grandmother. She's perfect. Dominic's voice came from behind her, and she turned to find him standing in the boutique's doorway. Something flickered across his expression. As he looked at her, surprise, appreciation, something else she couldn't identify. You clean up well, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. So do you. He moved closer and she caught that familiar scent of bergamot and danger. There's just one more thing we need to address. What's that? Your story. Our story. He gestured toward a sitting area where champagne and small pastries waited on a silver tray. We need to create a believable history for how we met, how we fell in love. The media will ask questions, and we need to have consistent answers. They sat across from each other on velvet chairs, and Kestrel felt the weight of what they were attempting settle over her like a heavy coat. This wasn't just about wearing pretty clothes and smiling for cameras. They were about to lie to the world, to his business partners, to everyone who mattered in his life. "So," she said, accepting a glass of champagne she didn't want. "What's our love story?" "We met at a charity event 3 months ago. You were working, I was attending. I was immediately intrigued by your—" He paused, studying her face. "Your grace under pressure, the way you handled difficult guests with dignity." "How romantic," she said dryly. "You fell for the help." "I fell for a woman who didn't throw herself at me the moment we met." His tone was matter-of-fact, but there was something underneath it that made her look at him more carefully. "Someone who challenged me. Is that what I did?" "You're doing it right now." He leaned forward slightly, and the space between them seemed to shrink. "Most people are afraid to speak honestly to me. You don't seem to have that problem. Maybe I'm too stupid to be afraid. Or maybe you're braver than you think." He raised his champagne glass in a mock toast. "To our whirlwind romance." She clinked her glass against his, feeling the crystal sing. "How whirlwind are we talking?" "Fast enough to be believable, slow enough to seem real. We've been discreet because I value privacy. But now, with the merger approaching, I'm ready to go public with our relationship." "And after 30 days?" "After 30 days, we'll have a very civilized breakup. Mutual decision, no hard feelings, wish each other well." His smile was practiced, media ready. "I'll be the heartbroken but respectful ex-boyfriend. You'll be the one who got away." It sounded so simple when he laid it out like that. A business transaction with clear parameters and a definite end date. But as Kestrel looked at the man across from her, really looked at him, she wondered if anything involving Dominic Blackthorne could ever be that straightforward. "There's something else," he said, his voice dropping to a more intimate register. "Physical affection will need to be convincing." Her heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "Holding hands, kisses for the cameras, the kind of casual intimacy that couples take for granted." His eyes held hers steadily. "Are you comfortable with that?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Kestrel thought about her grandmother, about the money, about the 30 days that stood between her and freedom. She thought about the man who held her fate in his hands and the dangerous game they were about to play. "I can handle it," she said, lifting her chin. "Good." He stood, extending his hand to her. "Then let's go meet the world, Miss Hartwell. Your new life begins now." As she took his hand and let him pull her to her feet, Kestrel caught their reflection in the boutique's mirror. They looked perfect together, the powerful billionaire and his sophisticated girlfriend, a couple that belonged on magazine covers and red carpets. But reflections, she reminded herself, were just illusions, and she was about to discover that some illusions were more dangerous than reality. The flash of camera bulbs was blinding. Kestrel's fingers tightened involuntarily around Dominic's arm as they stepped out of the Rolls-Royce onto the red carpet of the Venice International Film Festival. The emerald silk gown Celeste had chosen clung to her curves like liquid, and the borrowed Bulgari diamonds at her throat caught the evening light with every breath. "Smile," Dominic murmured against her ear, his breath warm against her skin. To anyone watching, it would look like an intimate whisper between lovers. "You look terrified." "I am terrified," she whispered back, maintaining her practiced smile, as photographers shouted their names. "I don't know how to do this." "You're doing perfectly." His hand settled possessively on the small of her back, guiding her forward. "Just remember, you're completely enchanted by me, and I'm the luckiest man alive to have you." The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, dressed like a princess, walking the most famous red carpet in Europe, and all she could think about was how desperately she wanted to run back to her hotel room and call her grandmother. "Signor Blackthorne, over here." A photographer gestured them toward a backdrop covered in sponsor logos. "Who is your beautiful companion?" "This is Kestrel Hartwell," Dominic said, pulling her closer. The practiced charm in his voice was so convincing it almost fooled her. "The woman who changed my life." More flashes, more shouted questions. Kestrel felt exposed under the scrutiny, as if everyone could see through her designer facade to the desperate girl underneath. But then Dominic's thumb traced a small circle on her lower back, a gesture so subtle only she could feel it, and somehow it steadied her. "How did you meet?" called a reporter from Entertainment Tonight. "At a charity gala in Monaco," Kestrel found herself saying, surprised by how natural her voice sounded. "I was working the event and Dominic—" She looked up at him, remembering their conversation in Zurich. "He was the first person who actually saw me." Something flickered in his eyes at her words, surprise perhaps at how close to the truth her lie had been. His free hand came up to touch her cheek with startling gentleness. "She was the most graceful woman in the room," he said, and for a moment Kestrel forgot they were acting. "I knew I had to meet her." The crowd of photographers ate it up, shouting for them to kiss, to look at each other, to show more affection. Dominic's thumb traced along her jawline, tilting her face up toward his. "Is this okay?" he asked quietly, so quietly only she could hear. She nodded, not trusting her voice. His lips brushed hers, soft and warm and surprisingly careful. It lasted maybe 3 seconds, but the roar of camera shutters made it feel like an eternity. When he pulled back, her heart was racing for reasons that had nothing to do with stage fright. "Well done," he murmured as they moved away from the photographers toward the theater entrance. "You're a natural." "I feel like a fraud." "Everyone here is performing some version of themselves," he said, nodding, to a famous actress who air-kissed him on both cheeks. "The difference is that most of them have forgotten where the performance ends and they begin." Inside the premiere, they were seated in the VIP section alongside Hollywood royalty and European nobility. Kestrel tried to focus on the film, something artistic and Italian with subtitles, but she was acutely aware of Dominic beside her. The way he draped his arm casually across the back of her chair, the way his fingers occasionally played with her hair. Small gestures that would look natural to observers but sent unwelcome shivers through her body. During intermission, they mingled in the elegant lobby, champagne flutes in hand. Kestrel found herself playing the role better than she'd expected, laughing at Dominic's stories, touching his arm at appropriate moments, letting him introduce her to people whose names she recognized from gossip magazines. "You're different than I expected," said Contessa Mariella Veneziano, a silver-haired woman dripping in vintage Chanel. Dominic's previous companions were all so obvious. "Obvious how?" Kestrel asked, genuinely curious. "Trying too hard? To be seen, to be noticed. You seem perfectly content to let him shine." The Contessa's eyes were shrewd, calculating. "It's refreshing and clever." Before Kestrel could ask what she meant, Dominic appeared at her elbow with 2 fresh glasses of champagne. "Ladies, I hope you're not sharing embarrassing stories about me," he said with practiced charm. "Only the most scandalous ones," the Contessa replied with a laugh. "Your Kestrel is delightful, Caro. Hold on to this one." As the older woman drifted away, Dominic's expression grew thoughtful. "What did she say to you?" "That I'm different, from your usual type." Kestrel sipped her champagne, studying his face. "Should I be flattered or insulted?" "Probably both." His smile was wry. "Mariella has a talent for cutting straight to the heart of things." "And what heart is that?" Before he could answer, a man approached them. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of bearing that suggested significant wealth and power. "Dominic." The man clasped Dominic's shoulder with familiar affection. "I was hoping to see you here." "Marcus." Dominic's voice was warm but carefully controlled. "Kestrel, I'd like you to meet Marcus Ashford, chairman of Ashford Industries. Marcus, this is Kestrel Hartwell." Marcus took her hand, his eyes assessing. "A pleasure. I've been hearing rumors about Dominic's mysterious new romance." "All true, I hope," Kestrel said with a smile that felt more natural than it should have. "Indeed." Marcus's attention shifted back to Dominic. "I have to say, the board is quite pleased to see you settled. It shows maturity, stability, exactly what we've been hoping for. Kestrel felt Dominic tense almost imperceptibly beside her. This was it, the reason for their entire charade. Marcus Ashford wasn't just a casual acquaintance. He was clearly connected to the merger Dominic needed to close. Kestrel has been a wonderful influence, Dominic said, his arm tightening around her waist. She keeps me grounded. Excellent. Sarah and I would love to have you both for dinner next week. I'll have my assistant call yours. Marcus's smile was genuine, paternal. It's good to see you happy, my boy. Really good. As Marcus moved away, Kestrel felt the weight of what they'd just accomplished, and the weight of what it meant. Important man? She asked quietly. The most important. Dominic's voice was tense. He holds the deciding vote on my merger. If he approves of you, of us, the deal goes through. And if he doesn't, then everything I've worked for in the past 5 years disappears. He looked down at her, something unreadable in his expression. No pressure. The lights dimmed, signaling the end of intermission. As they returned to their seats, Kestrel felt the enormity of her role settling around her like a heavy cloak. This wasn't just about pretending to be in love for cameras and reporters. She was responsible for Dominic's future, his life's work. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, as she settled back into her seat and felt his hand find hers in the darkness, she realized something far more dangerous was happening. She was starting to care whether he succeeded. You did well tonight, he said softly as the second half of the film began. Did I? She turned to look at him in the dim light from the screen. It's getting easier to pretend. Is it pretending? The question was so quiet she almost didn't hear it. But she did hear it. And as she sat there in the darkness, his fingers intertwined with hers, Kestrel began to understand that the most dangerous part of their arrangement wasn't the lie they were telling the world. It was the truth they might be telling themselves. The morning sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Dominic's Parisian penthouse should have been beautiful. Instead, it illuminated the chaos scattered across the marble coffee table. Tabloid magazines with their faces splashed across every cover, social media printouts, and a laptop displaying an endless scroll of comments that made Kestrel's stomach turn. Mystery woman captures billionaire's heart, she read aloud from the Daily Mail. Who is Kestrel Hartwell? From serving tables to serving looks. They work fast, Dominic said grimly, setting down his phone after what sounded like another tense conversation with his publicist. He wore only black pajama pants and a white t-shirt, his perfectly styled hair disheveled from running his hands through it. Even stressed and unguarded, he was devastatingly attractive. Listen to this one, Kestrel continued, her voice growing sharper with each word. Sources close to Blackthorn suggest this romance is nothing more than a calculated PR move to improve his image before the Ashford merger. She looked up at him, eyebrow raised. Your sources have excellent instincts. It's not all bad press. He moved to pour himself coffee from the French press on the kitchen island, his movements sharp with frustration. Forbes called you refreshingly authentic. Vogue wants to do a profile. A profile? Kestrel felt panic flutter in her chest. I can't do a profile. They'll dig into my background, find out about my grandmother, about Monaco. They won't find anything. His certainty stopped her mid-sentence. I've already taken care of it. She stared at him. What do you mean, taken care of it? I mean, your past has been curated. The security footage from Monaco has been permanently deleted. Your employment records show you've been working as a freelance event coordinator for the past year, building an impressive client list. Very exclusive, very discreet. The casual way he described rewriting her entire history made her blood run cold. You've been busy. I told you. I make it my business to know everything about everyone in my orbit. He leaned against the marble counter, studying her with those penetrating gray eyes. The question is whether you're ready for everything that comes with being in that orbit. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. The change in his expression, as he read the message, made her stomach drop. What is it? Marcus Ashford wants to move up our dinner tonight. He set the phone down carefully as if it might explode. His wife Sarah is flying back from New York early, and they want to meet. You properly. Tonight? Kestrel's voice cracked slightly. I'm not ready for this. I need more time to prepare to. Time is a luxury we don't have. Dominic moved toward her, and she caught that familiar scent of bergamot and authority. The merger vote is in 2 weeks. If Marcus isn't convinced we're genuine, if he thinks this is all for show, then your deal falls apart, and I go to prison for theft. She finished the thought he wouldn't say aloud. I understand the stakes, Dominic. Something in her tone made him pause. They'd been living in this penthouse for 3 days now, sleeping in separate bedrooms, maintaining careful distance except when they were in public. But the walls between them were starting to feel thinner. There's something else, he said, quietly. Sarah Ashford isn't like the society women you've met so far. She's brilliant, ruthless when she needs to be, and she has an uncanny ability to spot lies. Wonderful. Kestrel sank onto the cream-colored sofa, suddenly exhausted. Any other cheerful news? She also lost her daughter 3 years ago, leukemia. His voice softened. She might ask about family, about loss. Just be prepared. The information hit her like a physical blow. Here she was, lying to everyone about everything, and she might have to face a woman who'd experienced real tragedy. The guilt that had been building for days suddenly felt crushing. I can't do this, she whispered. Yes, you can. He sat beside her on the sofa, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes. You're stronger than you think, Kestrel. How would you know what I am? You don't know anything about me except what you've paid for. The words hung between them like a slap. Dominic's jaw tightened, and for a moment she thought he would retreat into his cold businessman persona. Instead, he surprised her. I know you tried to steal a necklace to save someone you love, he said quietly. I know you haven't spoken to your grandmother since we made our deal, because you're afraid you'll break down and tell her the truth. I know you lie awake at night wondering if you're becoming someone you don't recognize. Her breath caught. How do you? Because I've been watching you. Really watching you. His hand moved to cover hers on the sofa cushion. And I know that despite everything, the blackmail, the lies, the fact that you hate me for trapping you in this, you're still trying to do the right thing. The touch of his skin against hers sent electricity up her arm. This was dangerous territory, this moment of honesty between them. It would be so much easier if she could keep hating him completely. I don't hate you, she admitted, the words slipping out before she could stop them. No? His thumb traced across her knuckles, a gesture so gentle it made her chest ache. I hate the situation. I hate feeling like I'm losing myself. She met his eyes, seeing something vulnerable there that he usually kept hidden. But you're more complicated than I expected. Complicated how? You could have chosen anyone for this. Someone who would have jumped at the chance to be your fake girlfriend. But you chose someone who would challenge you. Someone who wouldn't make it easy. She studied his face, trying to read the emotions flickering across it. Why make this harder on yourself? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because easy doesn't change anything. And maybe I'm tired of who I've been. The admission hung in the air between them, raw and unexpected. Kestrel felt something shift in her chest, a crack in the armor she'd built around her heart. This wasn't the arrogant billionaire who'd blackmailed her in Monaco. This was something else entirely. Dominic. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He pulled his hand away from hers, the walls sliding back into place as he answered. Yes. Margaret, tonight at 8, yes, she'll be ready. He hung up and stood, smoothing his hair back into place. Sarah Ashford's assistant, they're expecting us at 8 sharp. The vulnerability was gone, replaced by the controlled businessman she'd come to know. But Kestrel had seen behind the mask now, and she couldn't unsee it. I should start getting "Ready?" she said, standing as well. "Kestrel." He caught her hand as she moved past him. "What happened just now?" "Was part of the performance," she finished, pulling away. "I understand." But as she walked toward her bedroom, she knew they were both lying. What had happened between them on that sofa was the most real thing either of them had experienced in days. And that made it the most dangerous thing of all, because in 6 hours they would have to convince the Ashfords that their love was genuine. And Kestrel was beginning to realize that the hardest part wouldn't be lying about loving Dominic Blackthorne. It would be admitting to herself that she might not be lying at all. The Ashford mansion in the 16th arrondissement was a testament to old money and older taste. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over Persian rugs and priceless art, while the scent of gardenias from Sarah Ashford's famous conservatory drifted through the air. Kestrel smoothed her navy Dior dress and tried to calm her racing heart as their host led them through marble corridors that echoed with centuries of privilege. "Sarah's been looking forward to this all day," Marcus said, his hand warm on Dominic's shoulder. "She doesn't entertain much anymore, not since—" He trailed off, the unfinished sentence hanging heavy in the air. They found Sarah Ashford in her private study, a room lined floor to ceiling with leather-bound books and family photographs. She was smaller than Kestrel had expected, elegant in the way that only comes from a lifetime of confidence. Her silver hair was swept into a perfect chignon, and her dark eyes missed nothing as they assessed the couple before her. "Dominic, darling." Sarah rose to embrace him, and Kestrel was surprised by the genuine warmth between them. "You look wonderful. Happiness suits you." "Sarah, I'd like you to meet Kestrel." Dominic's hand found the small of her back, a gesture that had become so natural it no longer felt calculated. "Kestrel, Sarah Ashford." "Mrs. Ashford." Kestrel extended her hand, but Sarah pulled her into an unexpected embrace instead. "Call me Sarah, please. Any woman who can make this stubborn man smile like that deserves first-name privileges." Sarah's eyes crinkled with humor, but Kestrel caught the sharp intelligence beneath the warmth. "Come, let's have drinks before dinner. I want to hear everything." They settled in the study's sitting area, crystal glasses of perfectly aged wine in hand. Sarah's questions began innocuously: how they met, their first date, favorite places to travel together. Kestrel and Dominic had rehearsed these answers, but sitting across from Sarah's penetrating gaze made every word feel like walking through a minefield. "You know," Sarah said, swirling her wine thoughtfully, "I've known Dominic since he was 25, fresh out of Stanford, convinced he could change the world through technology." Her smile was fond but pointed. "He's brought many women to dinner over the years, beautiful women, accomplished women. But I've never seen him look at any of them the way he looks at you." Heat crept up Kestrel's neck. "How does he look at me?" "Like he's seeing something he didn't know he was looking for." Sarah's attention shifted to Dominic. "It's quite remarkable, really. I was beginning to think you'd forgotten how to be genuinely surprised by another person." "Kestrel has a talent for surprise," Dominic said, his voice carrying an undercurrent that made Kestrel's pulse quicken. "I imagine she does." Sarah rose gracefully. "Shall we move to the dining room? Marcus is probably wondering what's keeping us." Dinner was an elegant affair. 7 courses served on Sèvres porcelain by silent staff who moved like shadows. The conversation flowed from business to art to travel, and Kestrel found herself relaxing despite the stakes. Marcus was charming and intelligent, clearly devoted to his wife, while Sarah proved to be wickedly funny when she wanted to be. It was during the 5th course that Sarah's questions took a more personal turn. "Tell me about your family, Kestrel," she said, cutting into her perfectly prepared duck. "Are your parents still living?" Kestrel's fork paused halfway to her mouth. This was the territory she'd been dreading. "My parents died when I was 16. Car accident. I was raised by my grandmother." "I'm so sorry." Sarah's voice carried genuine sympathy. "That must have been terribly difficult." "It was. But my grandmother—" Kestrel found herself speaking from the heart, forgetting for a moment that she was supposed to be performing. She's the strongest person I know. She taught me that love means doing whatever it takes to protect the people who matter. Even when it's hard? Sarah asked quietly. Especially when it's hard. The words came out with more emotion than Kestrel intended, and she felt Dominic's attention sharpen beside her. How wise of her. Sarah's eyes had grown soft, distant. My daughter used to say something similar. That real love wasn't about the easy moments. It was about choosing each other when everything else falls apart. The silence that followed was heavy with grief and understanding. Kestrel felt tears prick her eyes, remembering her grandmother's frail hands and determined smile. Without thinking, she reached for Dominic's hand under the table, needing something solid to anchor her. His fingers closed around hers immediately, warm and steady. But when she looked at him, she saw something unexpected in his expression. Not the calculated comfort of their arrangement, but genuine concern for her pain. She sounds like she was remarkable, Kestrel said softly. She was. Sarah's smile was tremulous but real. She would have liked you, I think. You have that same fierce loyalty in your eyes. Marcus cleared his throat gently, steering the conversation toward lighter topics. But Kestrel barely heard the rest of dinner. She was too aware of Dominic's thumb tracing slow circles on her palm, of the way he kept glancing at her with something that looked suspiciously like protective affection. After dinner, Marcus drew Dominic aside for brandy and business talk, leaving Kestrel alone with Sarah in the conservatory. The glass-walled room was filled with exotic flowers and the soft sound of a fountain, moonlight filtering through the leaves to create shifting patterns on the floor. You love him, Sarah said without preamble, settling onto a wrought iron bench surrounded by white orchids. Kestrel's carefully prepared denials died in her throat. It's complicated. The best love usually is. Sarah patted the space beside her. Sit with me a moment. They sat in comfortable silence, surrounded by the gentle perfume of night blooming jasmine. When Sarah spoke again, her voice was thoughtful. Marcus and I have been married 38 years. Do you know what I've learned in all that time? What? That the heart rarely chooses sensibly. It doesn't care about social position, or bank accounts, or whether the timing is convenient. Sarah's fingers traced the petals of a nearby rose. It simply chooses. And then we have to decide whether we're brave enough to follow. What if following means risking everything? What if not following means missing everything? Sarah countered gently. I've watched Dominic build walls around himself for years. Successful walls, profitable walls, but walls nonetheless. You've managed to breach them in a matter of weeks. Kestrel's throat tightened. You think he cares about me? I think he's terrified of how much he cares about you. Sarah's smile was knowing. And I think you feel exactly the same way. Before Kestrel could respond, footsteps echoed through the conservatory. Dominic appeared in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Sorry to interrupt, but we should head back soon. Early meeting tomorrow. Of course. Sarah rose, embracing Kestrel warmly. It's been lovely getting to know you, dear. I hope we'll see much more of each other. As they said their goodbyes, Marcus pulled Dominic aside, one final time. She's perfect for you, Kestrel heard him say quietly. Grounded, intelligent, genuine. The board will be impressed, but more importantly, she makes you human again. In the car ride back to the penthouse, they sat in charged silence. The evening had been a success by every measure. The Ashfords clearly approved. The merger was back on track. Their performance had been flawless. But something had shifted during those hours of careful deception. Sarah liked you, Dominic said finally as Paris blurred past the windows. She's incredible. I can see why you care about their approval. It's not just about the merger anymore. His voice was quiet, contemplative. They're good people. I hate lying to them. Kestrel turned to study his profile in the passing streetlights. Then why are we? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he spoke, his words were barely audible over the engine. Because I'm not sure it's lying anymore. The admission hung between them like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. As they pulled up to the penthouse, Kestrel realized that their 30-day agreement had become something else entirely. The question was whether either of them was brave enough to admit what it had become. The boardroom of Blackthorn Industries was a temple to modern power. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Thames, a table that could seat 20 carved from a single piece of Brazilian rosewood, and technology that connected instantly to every major financial center in the world. But for all its grandeur, the room felt suffocating to Kestrel as she sat in the viewing gallery, watching Dominic present the final terms of his merger to a room full of men in expensive suits. 14 days. That's how long it had been since the dinner with the Ashfords, and each one had brought them closer to this moment and to the end of their 30-day agreement. Tomorrow she would walk away with her money, her freedom, and presumably her heart intact. The problem was that her heart felt anything but intact as she watched the man she'd agreed to hate defend the most important deal of his life. The Ashford partnership represents more than a merger, Dominic was saying, his voice commanding the room with effortless authority. It's a fundamental shift in how we approach sustainable technology. Together we can change not just our industry, but the world. Marcus Ashford nodded approvingly from his seat at the head of the table. The past 2 weeks had been a carefully orchestrated campaign. Board dinners where Kestrel played the perfect supportive girlfriend, charity galas where they presented a united front, private meetings where she'd charmed wives and daughters, while Dominic won over the men. Every performance had been flawless, every lie had been believed, and with each passing day, the lies had felt more like truth. "The vote is unanimous," announced Victoria Pemberton, the lead board member. "Congratulations, Dominic. The Ashford merger is approved." The room erupted in applause. Kestrel watched Dominic's face transform with relief and triumph and felt her chest tighten with something between pride and heartbreak. He'd done it. They'd done it. Their arrangement had served its purpose perfectly, which meant it was over. The celebration party that evening was held at Dominic's London penthouse, a glittering affair that brought together the most powerful people in European business. Kestrel moved through the crowd in a silver Valentino gown that caught the light, like starfire, accepting congratulations and playing her role one final time. Tomorrow she would be Kestrel Hartwell again, poor, desperate, anonymous. Tonight, she was still the woman who'd captured Dominic Blackthorn's heart. The irony wasn't lost on her that she'd actually done exactly that. "You look sad." Sarah Ashford appeared at her elbow, elegant in midnight blue silk. "One would think you'd be celebrating." "I am," Kestrel lied, forcing a bright smile. "This is everything Dominic worked for." "And what about what you worked for?" Sarah's eyes were knowing, compassionate. "What happens now, my dear?" Before Kestrel could answer, Dominic materialized beside them, champagne flute in hand and triumph still glowing in his face. "Sarah, thank you for everything. Your support made all the difference." He slipped his arm around Kestrel's waist, the gesture so natural it made her heart ache. "And Kestrel, I couldn't have done any of this without you." The way he looked at her in that moment, with gratitude and something deeper, something that looked dangerously like love, made her want to run from the room. Instead, she smiled and let him guide her away to meet more congratulatory guests. The evening blurred together in a haze of champagne and conversation. Kestrel found herself watching Dominic across the room, memorizing the way he laughed, the way his eyes crinkled when he was genuinely amused, the way he kept looking for her in the crowd as if needing to make sure she was still there. By midnight, the last guests had departed, leaving them alone among the ruins of the party. Catering staff moved efficiently through the space, clearing glasses and straightening furniture, while Kestrel stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows watching London sparkle below. "Successful evening," she said when she heard Dominic approach. "Very." He came to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell his cologne and the faint scent of champagne. "The contracts will be signed Monday. Everything we planned for is falling into place." "Everything," she repeated, the word tasting bitter. They stood in silence for several moments, both acutely aware that this was their last night. Tomorrow their arrangement would end. Tomorrow she would take her money and disappear from his life forever. Kestrel. His voice was soft, uncertain, in a way she'd never heard before. About tomorrow. I should go pack. She turned away from the window, unable to bear whatever he was about to say. Early flight back to the States. Wait. His hand caught her arm gently. There's something I need to tell you. She forced herself to meet his eyes, seeing vulnerability there that made her chest tighten. Don't. Don't what? Don't make this harder than it already is. Her voice came out shakier than she intended. We both know what this was. What it had to be. Do we? He stepped closer and she caught her breath. Because I've been thinking about something Sarah said to me tonight. Dominic. She said she'd never seen me look at anyone the way I look at you. His thumb traced along her jawline, the same gesture that had comforted her in Monaco, that had become so familiar she'd stopped noticing it. And she was right. I have never looked at anyone the way I look at you. Tears pricked at Kestrel's eyes. Stop. I can't stop, that's the problem. His other hand came up to cup her face, forcing her to meet his gaze. 30 days ago, I thought I was buying a performance. What I got instead was the most real thing that's ever happened to, me. It can't be real. The words came out as a whisper. It started with blackmail, with lies. It started with desperation. Yours and mine. His forehead touched hers, and she could feel his breath against her lips. But it doesn't have to end that way. For a moment, Kestrel let herself imagine it, staying in London, building something genuine with this complicated, dangerous, wonderful man. Waking up in his arms not because she was being paid to, but because she chose to. Then reality crashed back. I'm not part of your world, Dominic. She pulled back, creating distance between them. I'm a girl who tried to steal a necklace to pay for her grandmother's medical bills. You're a billionaire who moves in circles I'll never belong to. I don't care about that. Maybe not now, but you will. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the warmth of the room. When the novelty wears off, when your friends start wondering what you see in me, when what? When I realize I'm in love with someone who challenges me, who makes me want to be better than I am. His voice was raw with emotion. When I figure out that the woman I blackmailed into pretending to love me is the only person who's ever seen who I really am and chosen to stay anyway. The word love hung in the air between them like a bridge she was too afraid to cross. You don't love me, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. You love the idea of me, the project of me. I love your laugh when you think no one's listening. I love the way you bite your lip when you're nervous. I love that you argue with me, that you never let me get away with anything. He moved closer again, relentless in his honesty. I love that you tried to negotiate a better price for selling your soul. And I love that you're brave enough to walk away from this even though it's killing you. How do you know it's killing me? Because it's killing me too. The admission broke something inside her chest. All the walls she'd built, all the defenses she'd constructed to protect herself from exactly this moment, crumbled like sand. Dominic, she breathed. Stay. The word was simple, desperate. Not because of our deal, not because I'm paying you, but because you want to. Because this is real. She looked into his eyes, those storm gray eyes that had seen through every defense she'd ever built, and realized that Sarah Ashford had been right. Sometimes love meant being brave enough to follow your heart, even when everything logical told you to run. My grandmother, she whispered, will have the best medical care money can buy. Not because of our arrangement, but because she matters to you, and you matter to me. The money, keep it. It was always yours, regardless of what happens between us. His hands found hers, fingers intertwining. "I'm not asking you to stay for money, Kestrel. I'm asking you to stay for this." He kissed her then, soft and sure and full of promise. And for the first time in 30 days, it wasn't a performance. It was a choice. When they finally broke apart, Kestrel felt like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the billionaire who'd blackmailed her, not the performer who'd needed her for his deal, but simply Dominic. Flawed and complicated and real. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we figure it out together." His smile was tender, hopeful. "No contracts, no time limits, no arrangements. Just us." "Just us," she repeated, testing the words. "Are you brave enough for that?" Kestrel thought about her grandmother, who'd taught her that love meant doing whatever it takes. She thought about Sarah Ashford, who'd lost everything and still believed in choosing love. She thought about the girl who'd tried to steal a necklace and the woman she'd become in 30 days. "I'm brave enough," she said, and meant it. As Dominic pulled her into his arms again, Kestrel realized that some cages weren't prisons at all. Sometimes they were just safe places to discover who you really were. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you found someone willing to hold the key not to lock you in but to set you free. The gilded cage had become something else entirely. Home.